All right.
Hey, can I take a test now?
Let's go, John.
What is wrong with you? Wait, okay, scrambled sandwiches really depends on what kind of music. Just straight mayonnaise. Just
Okay, take a look, please. Here's the last thing you got to know. Very simple. Very, very simple.
That's really not simple.
It is. Very simple. Okay, this is based on, remember, we looked at some stuff yesterday, and what we ended up saying, put all the phones and stuff away, please. We ended up saying that if you look at the behavior of a polynomial at the tails of the function, way out to the right or way out to the left, which term dominated? Which term ended up being, because didn't we look at some graphs where we zoomed way out? The one with the biggest power of x, exactly. So it's going to be the leading term is always the one, that's the one that's going to dominate when we get very, very far away from 0. Go really far out to the left or really far out to the right. Okay, now I want you to tell me, what does that function look like? If it's, there's a couple ways you can look at this. That's just a power function. We looked yesterday at what x cubed, what all the odd functions look like and what all the even functions look like. What does an odd function look like?
Like a little.
Yeah, the odd functions looked like this, didn't they? They kind of went like that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now, what happens if I multiply an odd function by a negative number? It just flips it over, exactly. Okay. This is multiplied by a positive number, though, so it's not flipped, right?
Yes.
So as x approaches positive infinity, that means as we go out this way forever, are we going up or down forever?
Up.
Up. So the answer is positive infinity. As x approaches infinity, so as we go out this way forever, y approaches positive infinity, so we also go up forever. See what I'm saying? Okay, what would the limit be? What if we took the same limit as x approached negative infinity? What would the answer be?
Go down.
We go down, so it'd be negative infinity, wouldn't it? But the answer in that case would have been negative. You see why?
Yeah.
So if we do this, if we call that like a plus or minus, we would have gotten plus or minus infinity for our answer. Plus for plus, minus for minus, right? Okay. The other way to think about that is this way. I kind of think this is a pretty good way to do it. Just look at the first function, or the power function that's the first term, and just say, okay, what does that graph look like? And then just ask yourself, if I go way out to the right to positive infinity, am I up or down? The other way you can look at it is this. You could say, okay, well, as x approaches, for example, positive infinity, you always know any polynomial, when you go really far out, left or right, it's always going to explode. It's always going to be either up towards positive infinity or down towards negative infinity. Every time. It'll never be different. The question is just, which one? What's the sign going to be of the infinity? Positive or negative? So all you have to do is just look at the sign of the first term. Right? So when x approaches positive infinity, let's say, if x approaches positive infinity, what's the sign of the first term going to be? I'm going to get a positive 2, and just look at it as a product of signs. Right? So I'm going to get a positive coefficient times a positive number to any power is what? If I take any positive number and raise it to a power, am I going to get a positive or negative result? Positive. So I'm going to get a positive times a positive. Positive times positive equals positive. Right? Make sense? Okay, let's try another one. Try this one then. What if you have f of x equals negative 3 negative 3x to the fourth minus 2x cubed plus x. Let's take the limit of f of x as x approaches negative infinity. Let's do this two ways. But let's do the sign trick first. So the limit is going to be some kind of infinity, right? Just a depends on the sign of the first term. What's the sign gonna be? Now, if I look at this as a product of signs, I'm gonna get a negative coefficient, and if I take a negative number, because x is approaching negative infinity, right? So if I take a negative number to an even power, what do I get back? Positive, right? So it's gonna equal negative times positive, which is what? Negative. The answer is negative infinity.
So 3 doesn't have anything to do with it?
Well,
-3?
you mean this 3 right here?
Yeah.
No, all that matters is that it's a negative 3. The sign does matter, but the value doesn't matter, right? 3 times infinity is just infinity, okay? What if we looked at it in terms of a graph? What does an even function look like, the graph? Well, okay, then in this case it's going to. A normal even function would look like that, right? But this one's gonna get flipped because we're multiplying by a negative. Whoops, let's make that. Because we're multiplying by a negative, so it gets flipped over the x-axis, so it's gonna be down at both tails. Both limits at positive and as we approach positive infinity or negative infinity would be negative, right? Get the idea? Yeah. Okay. What if this had been same problem? What if this had been, let's say, x to the 5th? Okay, let's say we're approaching positive infinity this time. Okay. So we know we're gonna get some kind of infinity. What kind? We get negative times a positive number to an odd power. Is positive, product is negative, right? Okay. What about the other side? What if we'd approached negative infinity? If we'd approached negative infinity, we would have gotten a negative sign times a negative number to an odd power is negative. Right, a negative number to an odd power, like for example, does that make sense? Like negative 3 to the 1, negative 3. Negative 3 squared is positive 9, but negative 3 cubed is negative 27, right? So we get negative times negative would be positive. That also makes sense with the graph, doesn't it? Because if we've taken an odd function, right? We have an x to the 5th is an odd function. But we've flipped that around the x-axis, so now it looks like that, right? That makes sense? So as we approach negative infinity, it's going up. We should get a positive answer. Yep.
Is there ever an instance where that line will eventually just straighten itself out? Like, what would cause it to do that?
You mean go straight up?
Yeah.
Never. Never. It'll keep getting steeper and steeper, but it always has.
But it will never just like be like this. That'll be just like straight.
Nope. No, it's always gonna be curved. Yep. On any scale, it's just gonna get steeper and steeper. Yep. Okay, I think we're good. Let's go to, I don't know, let me look real quick. I can't remember.